Do you believe? There are things people call karma that don't need to be cast by anyone. Don't need to be summoned by anyone. Just one touch, and they follow you for the rest of your life? Have you ever heard of someone who used to live quietly in the village? No one knowing who their parents were. But every time someone couldn't sleep, children cried through the night, or dogs howled past midnight, they'd say, "Must be him drawing spells again." The story begins with a banyan tree, a foolish oath, and a figure who never aged. Year after year, don't look away, because in the end, you'll realize some professions don't need to be named. Just look into the eyes of the person who carries it, and you'll know how heavy it is. The afternoon wind in Không village rustled through the old banyan leaves, sounding like whispers. That tree stood on a patch of empty land at the village entrance, its twisted roots gripping a large stone that locals believed marked the burial of an ancient sorcery charm. That was also the place where I, Theen, 11 years old, first learned of dark magic. I say, my village is superstitious. Ever since I was little, stories of ghosts and spells were as common as rice and soup. People wouldn't go to the hospital when sick, they'd go find Old Man Tam, the spellcaster who lived in a straw hut at the edge of the fields. I heard the stories so often that I got used to them, but never imagined one day I'd step into that hut myself. I lived with my grandmother. My mom left when I was just a baby, and no one ever mentioned my dad. Grandma sold rice paper at the market and raised me on her own. Whenever I got sick, she didn't need a thermometer, she'd just touch my forehead and sigh. She said, "Must be a spirit following you. Tomorrow I'll take you to Old Man Tam." That evening, she led me across the rice fields to a crooked little hut. The smell of incense was thick inside. Old Man Tam sat in the middle, hair long and messy, eyes half closed, fingering a black prayer bead chain. He asked, "Does the boy have a connection?" Grandma's voice trembled. "He keeps dreaming of the dead. Each time it happens, he's bedridden. I'm afraid he won't make it." Old Man Tam said, "He's got the mark. He must learn. If he doesn't, sooner or later, they'll take him." I stood there, not understanding a thing, but my grandmother nodded over and over. From that day on, I couldn't play soccer with the neighborhood kids after school anymore. I had to learn from Old Man Tam how to draw spells, chant incantations, track the wind, and mark the sacred hours. Grandma said, "Try your best, child. We owe them more than we can repay." I obeyed, but ever since I started learning, I had strange dreams every night. I'd dream of a soaking wet child standing outside the window, hair covering its face, whispering softly. The child said, "Let me in, it's so cold." I told Old Man Tam. He just looked at me and smirked. He said, "It hasn't moved on yet. If you want peace, you must hold the ritual. Follow me." That night, I followed him to the banyan tree at the village entrance. He handed me a red paper filled with strange symbols and told me to read it aloud. Before I could ask anything, the wind picked up fiercely, leaves spinning in the air. Behind me, soft giggles echoed. Old Man Tam warned, "Don't turn around. Keep reading." My hands trembled, but I kept reading. From the corner of my eye, I saw a white figure flicker behind the tree. When everything finally settled down, he leaned in close and spoke quietly. He said, "Now it follows you. Live properly, and don't let it go hungry." I thought he was joking, but that night, when I opened my door, I clearly saw wet footprints under the bed. I say, from that moment on, I knew I was no longer alone. I said, "I'm not going to school today. I'm too tired, Grandma." Grandma replied, "Even if you don't go to school, you still have to go to Old Man Tam's hut. We made a promise. Can't break our word." I sighed, pulled on my cloak, then slipped into my sandals, still soaking wet from the rain last night. The sky was gray that day, wind howling through the banana trees behind the house. When I arrived, someone was already sitting inside Old Man Tam's hut. A girl in her early 20s, short hair, wearing a faded jacket, her eyes red as if she'd been crying for hours. Old Man Tam said, "Perfect timing. Come sit." I sat down on the mat, keeping a bit of distance from the girl. She glanced at me, then looked away without a word. Old Man Tam asked, "What's your name?" The girl answered softly, "Duyen." Old man Tam continued, "What kind of charm do you want?" Duyen whispered, "I want to keep my lover. He's threatening to leave me for another woman." Old man Tam nodded, looked over at me. "All right, you help me. It's time." I blinked in confusion. "Help with what, sir?" Old man Tam didn't answer. He just handed me the incense bowl, told me to pour rice wine into a plate, then brought out a bowl filled with someone's freshly cut hair. The incense smoke stung my eyes. I followed his instructions while watching Duyen squeeze her bleeding hand. She trembled, but her eyes didn't blink once. After the ritual, Old man Tam gave her a tightly wrapped paper bundle and repeated his instructions over and over. Old man Tam said, "Sprinkle half under his pillow. Use the other half to boil water and wash your hair. For 3 days, avoid anyone in mourning. Don't walk past any intersections." Duyen nodded, bowed, then left quickly. Even after she disappeared from sight, Old man Tam sat still, chanting softly. That night, I didn't dream of the wet child like usual. I dreamed of Duyen. She was standing in the middle of a field, her skirt soaked, face blurred like water. She was saying something I couldn't understand, but I remembered the cold, piercing chill down my spine. The next morning, Old man Tam told me to go help him in the fields. Old man Tam said, "Teaching you how to hold your spirit. If you cast charms without holding it steady, the charm turns, then you'll die before you can say goodbye." I asked, "What does it mean for a charm to turn?" Old man Tam answered, "It means when the person you cast the charm on dies or breaks the vow, the charm has nowhere to cling to. It comes back to the one who made it." After hearing that, I got goosebumps. I didn't dare ask anymore. 3 days later, Grandma leaned in and whispered in my ear. She said, "That girl Duyen, she's dead. Child, took sleeping pills. They say she was still holding the charm bundle in her hand." I froze. Why? How could that happen? Grandma shook her head. No one knew. They only said her lover still married someone else. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Duyen standing in my room. Eyes blank white, lips pressed tight, hand clutching her chest. She spoke through tears. She said, "I was wrong, but did I really deserve to be taken? I just wanted to be loved." I trembled. By morning I was burning with fever, body hot all over. Old man Tam had to come to the house. As soon as he stepped in, he pulled a fistful of pitch black soil from his pocket and shoved it into my hand. Old man Tam said, "It's begun. From now on, you can't turn back anymore." I knew then. I had gotten involved with something far beyond superstition like I used to think. After Duyen's story, more and more people came to see Old man Tam. Some wanted charms to keep a husband, others to pray for children or ward off bad luck. I didn't ask anymore, I just followed instructions. My hands got used to the scent of incense, even the echoing tones of the incantations I chanted. One day, while I was lighting incense, an old woman appeared at the hut door. She said, "I'm not here to ask for a charm. I came to ask something. My son's been bewitched by a love spell. He's gone mad. I just want to know, can it be undone?" I hesitated. "What's his name?" She answered, "Nguyen Van Din, from Din Hamlet." I froze. That was the name of Duyen's lover, written on the offering slip from a few days ago. I stammered, "I don't know. I only help." She looked at me, nodded once, then turned to leave, her back hunched, hands trembling as if the wind could knock her over. That night, I went to the banyan tree, lit incense, and bowed my head to whisper. I said, "If you're still out there, please forgive me." I didn't mean to. The wind swept across my back. Cold. I didn't turn around, but I knew someone was standing behind me. I said, "Mr. Tam, the truck family just called us. They said their house is haunted. Every night, there's knocking on the walls and children crying in the middle of the night." Mr. Tam nodded. "Let's go. It's been a while since we've had a strange case." I grabbed a bundle of incense, some red paper sheets, and a bottle of wine. The sky was turning stormy, the cold northern wind slicing across my face. Mr. Truck's house sat at the edge of the village. A traditional 3-room house with moss-covered tile roof, flanked by dense banana groves. I'd passed by many times, but never dared look directly at the front door. It had an eerie aura that was hard to explain. Mrs. Truck opened the door, her face pale and weary. She said, "Please come in and take a look. My daughter-in-law just gave birth, but the baby cries all night. And little man, she keeps saying someone stands at the foot of her bed." We stepped inside. The house was dark, the flickering light barely staying lit. A musty smell mixed with the damp scent of recently boiled herbal leaves. Mr. Tam signaled me to light the incense and place one stick at each corner of the house. I whispered, "Are we performing a blessing ritual?" Mr. Tam replied, "Don't know what it is yet. Let's take a look first." As I placed the incense near the base of the stairs, my hand brushed against a loose floor tile. I lifted it. Beneath the tile was a piece of old, yellowed paper stuck to the damp earth. I muttered, "A sealed charm?" My hands trembled. The writing was faint, inked in Chinese calligraphy, and I realized it was my own handwriting. I gasped. "This." I placed this. Mr. Tam turned to me and stared for a long time. Without a word, he told me to sit down and pulled a small carved wooden seal from his pocket. He said, "You forgot. This was the first house I let you practice on, back when you'd only been learning for 3 months." I froze. "But people are living here now?" Mr. Tam's voice turned cold. "Not back then. It was an abandoned house. But your seal wasn't strong enough. You didn't close the spirit's mouth properly. So it lingered, never able to leave." I whispered, "So, the child-shaped shadow little man saw, was it?" Mr. Tam nodded. "It was. Not malicious, but starving for a long time. Now that people moved in, it clings to them, refuses to go." We began the unsealing ritual. I redrew the charm, placed it on the floor, scattered salt around the living room, and planted 4 more incense sticks aligned with the wind's direction. From the inner room came the cry of a child, sharp and high-pitched, then it stopped abruptly. Mrs. Truck rushed over. It cried and then stopped right away. "That's never happened before." I said nothing. I clearly saw the shadow of a child glide across the stairs, then vanish into the corner where the old charm had been placed. That night, I couldn't rest. The image of that faded charm I'd once placed haunted me. I never thought one mistake while learning could leave behind such a consequence. That night, I dreamed again. I found myself inside that house once more. But this time, no one else was there. Only the child, standing in the middle of the house. Back turned to me. He said, "Why did you leave me here for so long?" I woke up drenched in sweat, my whole body cold as ice. The next morning, I searched through my old charm learning notebook. I flipped through every page, trying to find the original formula I had used. And I found a torn page. The notes were cut out. I asked Mr. Tam, "Did you tear my notebook?" Mr. Tam sighed. "I didn't want you to be haunted by it. But maybe I was wrong." I said, "If I make one mistake, I can accept that. But if I keep making more, someone else will pay for it. I don't want that anymore." That afternoon, I went back to Mr. Truck's house alone. I brought a small gift, a clay toy figurine shaped like a child, infused with the scent of incense. I placed it under the banana tree behind the house, right where Little Man said she saw the child. I whispered, "I'm sorry. This was my fault. If you're still here, please take this and go somewhere else. Find your family." A gentle breeze swept by. The banana leaves rustled like faint applause. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. But I knew deep down, my first mistake would forever be etched into that house. I said, "Uncle Tam, there's an old mirror in my room, from Grandma. Ever since I hung it up, every time I look into it, I get a headache and feel nauseous. Sometimes I even hear breathing behind me." Uncle Tam asked, "Did you take that round mirror and hang it above your desk?" I nodded. "Yes, it was in a trunk. I wiped it clean and hung it up." He paused for a few seconds, then said, "That mirror used to be placed on your great-grandfather's altar. Altar mirrors aren't meant to reflect the living. They trap spirits." I felt a chill down my spine. That night, I covered the mirror with a cloth. But the moment I turned away, I heard a faint tapping, like fingernails gently tapping on glass. I turned around. The cloth had fallen. The mirror was fogged up, even though it wasn't hot, and no fan was on. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. But in the mirror, behind me, was a red blanket on the bed. I turned around to look. The blanket was green. Yet in the mirror, it remained red. I murmured, "This isn't a true reflection." The next morning, I brought the mirror out to Uncle Tam's hut. He looked at it and shook his head. "Someone once used this to summon spirits. You're now living with an old shadow." I asked, "Is there a way to break the connection?" He said, "No, you can only bargain. If it just reflects, let it reflect. But if one day it starts to mimic you, then beware." I didn't dare ask more. That night, I lit 3 incense sticks and prayed in front of the mirror. I said, "If someone is in there, please don't follow me. I hung you up by mistake. I don't mean any harm." A breeze slipped through the window. The mirror fogged up even more. But nothing else happened. I thought maybe it was over. At midnight, I woke up thirsty. As I passed my desk, I froze. In the mirror, I was still sitting, flipping through a book, staring straight at me. I stepped back, stammering, "That's not me." The reflection mouthed, "That's not me." I screamed and raised my hand to smash the mirror. But my hand touched its cold surface. It didn't break. The mirror stayed whole, and I was still sitting inside it. The next morning, I shakily told Uncle Tam. He wasn't surprised. He said, "You let it borrow your face for too long. Now it believes your body is its own." I asked, "Then what should I do?" He handed me 4 red paper talismans and told me to stick one in each corner of the mirror. Then added, "Once you've sealed it, don't ever look again. No matter what happens, don't look. If you do, it'll remember your face forever." I followed his instructions. A week passed. Nothing happened. But then one day, I accidentally looked, just for a moment, and in the mirror, it wasn't me anymore. It was someone who looked like me, but with a pale face. Long hair draped over the shoulders, and a slow, eerie smile. It said, "Now I am the one who sees. And you're the one on the outside." I backed away, but the mirror didn't crack. I took it out to the garden and smashed it with a hammer. The glass shattered, but in one piece. A faint face still lingered. I gathered every shard, wrapped them up, and brought them to Uncle Tam's hut. We burned them right at the doorstep. He said, "You're free now. But remember, never use altar items as everyday things again. Not everything old is meant to be kept." I watched the ashes drift into the air. One tiny black flake, light as a strand of hair, fell onto my hand. Its shape looked just like my smiling face. After what happened with the mirror, I developed a fear of old objects in the house. Anything connected to the deceased, I burned it all in the backyard. But there was one thing I just couldn't bring myself to destroy. A white ivory handkerchief, embroidered with flowers, lace trimmed, carrying a faint scent of lavender. It belonged to Lean, the first girl I ever loved. I said, "Uncle Tam, I dreamed of Lean. She was sitting under the banyan tree, still wearing the purple oud dye from the last time I saw her. But it was strange. Her face had no eyes." Uncle Tam asked, "Did you ever use a love charm on her?" I stayed silent, because I knew I had. At 17, I fell in love with Lean. She was 2 years older, the daughter of a friend of my grandmother's. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and her eyes seemed to see right through a person's soul. But she already had someone, a college student far away. I was hurt, jealous, bitter. One night, I secretly took a lock of her hair and made a charm to keep her close. I just thought, if she would look at me one more time, that would be enough. 2 weeks later, she stopped eating, couldn't sleep, then suddenly fell into a state of panic. Her family admitted her to a psychiatric hospital. The doctor said it was nervous exhaustion. But I knew the charm had turned on her. I confessed everything to Uncle Tam. He didn't scold me, didn't even get angry. He said, "You can't force love. A charm that binds the heart is the most karmic of all. You weren't ready." The charm turned around and started draining your blood. I didn't understand, not until one afternoon, while washing my hands behind the hut. I looked down at the rainwater. The surface was clear, but instead of my reflection, I saw Lean. She stood in a white room, her face covered in blood, silently mouthing my name. I screamed. Uncle Tam came running, pulled me away from the water. She's calling you. You've touched her spirit. You have to go. That night, we went to the old hospital where Lean had once been treated. It was now abandoned. The record said she died of sudden cardiac arrest. But I knew that was when the charm reached her heart. I found her old room. The smell of bleach still lingered. On the wall, written in charcoal, someone had scrawled, "Let me go. It hurts too much." I knelt down, placed the embroidered handkerchief in the center of the room, and lit 3 incense sticks. I prayed, "Lean, please forgive me. I was wrong. I was foolish. I should never have tried to keep you with something that wasn't real love." The wind died. The candle blew out. Behind me, I heard the softest footsteps. I turned, no one there. But the handkerchief, once white, was now soaked in blood. Dark, deep red, as if my own guilty heart was bleeding through it. I clutched it, screaming, "If you still blame me, punish me. Let it fall on me. But don't carry that pain with you anymore." Outside the window, a thin lavender mist drifted by. In it, the faint outline of a girl in a purple audai, walking away, never turning back. I stood there a long time, until Uncle Tam came and gently patted my shoulder. He said, "It's done. You've paid back part of your debt. But memories, they stay." I nodded. The tears no longer fell. But my heart felt hollow. From that day on, whenever someone mentions the name Lean, my chest tightens, like an old scar freshly torn open. I said, "Uncle Tam, something's not right. Lately, every time I perform a ritual, my hands shake, the charm strokes come out crooked, the ink doesn't dry. One time, my hand even started bleeding and I didn't know why." Uncle Tam didn't answer right away. He stared at me for a long moment, then let out a deep sigh. "It's time you learned about my old master, and the charm that should never be passed down." I sat down, fully attentive. Outside, light rain began falling. The scent of damp earth drifted into the hut. Uncle Tam began, "When I was 15, I was like you, eager to learn. Quick with my hands, easily tempted. I had a teacher named Master Than. He didn't live in the village but out near the mountain's edge. Folks around here called him the Blood Master." I blinked. "Why did they call him that?" He replied, "Because he used fresh blood to write charms. Every time he cast one, he'd slice his skin, but his charms were powerful. He could summon the dead, trap wandering spirits, even command lost souls." I shivered. "And you still studied under him?" "I was obsessed," Uncle Tam admitted, "until one day, he told me to cut my hand open and let the blood drip onto the parchment." I hesitated. He said, "Without blood, you can't hold power. Without sacrifice, you can't grasp vengeance." I asked, "Did you do it?" He nodded. "Just once. That night, I dreamed of my mother. She was standing in a rice field, her hands covered in blood, crying but unable to speak. The next morning, I packed up and left. I never looked back." I asked softly, "What happened to Master Than?" Uncle Tam looked out into the rain. "He's dead, but no one dared bury him. They say his body never decomposed. Didn't smell, just laid there in the forest, eyes wide open. To this day, no one dares approach that hut." I fell silent. A cold chill crept down my spine. The image of my bleeding hand during rituals flashed in my mind. I asked, "Could it be my blood got tied to that charm?" Uncle Tam said, "I never taught you that kind. But your blood reacts because you've used a forbidden charm before, your first love charm." I remembered Duyen's face, Lean's face, the child under the banyan tree. All of them had once reflected through my blood. I whispered, "So what do I do now?" He replied, "You have to cleanse the blood, cut the memories, go to where Master Than once lived, apologize to the spirit of that land, and most importantly, if your hands still tremble while drawing charms, you must stop learning altogether." I nodded. We prepared to leave. The old hut lay deep within the forest of Tham Dai, a place no one dared enter after sunset. The path was slippery, vines snaked around our feet, the air heavy with mold and decay. Eventually, we reached it. The hut still stood, the thatched roof torn, wooden doors hanging off their hinges. On the collapsed altar lay a dark red cloth, stained with dried blood. I stepped inside and knelt on the dirt floor. I said, "If you're still here, Master, please hear me. I didn't come to seek more power. I came to apologize. I misused blood, caused pain with feelings that weren't sincere." A sudden gust of wind swept through the hut. A metallic scent filled my nose. A faint moan slipped from a crack in the wall. I turned. There, in the corner, crouched a shadowy figure, facing the wall, unmoving. I swallowed hard. My hand trembled, but I pulled out a blank charm paper and let one drop of my blood fall onto it. I continued. I returned what I once took. I severed the cursed bond. I released the memory written in blood. The figure slowly faded, not in a burst. Not with screams, just like smoke dissolving into mist. I collapsed to the floor, unable to breathe. Uncle Tam carried me out. He said, "You did it, but from now on, never draw charms with bare hands again." I nodded. My hands still dripped red, but my heart felt lighter than ever before. Ever since returning from Master Than's hut, I no longer dreamed of blood. But I began having other dreams, strange, repeating ones. In the dream, I stood in the middle of a dirt circle, surrounded by silent figures. No faces, no voices. They just stared at me. For a long, long time, I told Uncle Tam. I said, "I think they might be the people who were affected by the charms I made." He lowered his voice. "Could be, or it might be your own mind reminding you. Either way, it needs to be released. Because if not, one day, they won't just stand and watch." I asked, "How do I release it?" Uncle Tam replied, "You have to perform a ritual of atonement. At midnight, on bare earth, and it must be done by you alone. I can't be there." I swallowed hard. "Alone?" He nodded. "It's your karma. Only you can undo it." We chose an open patch of land near the old banyan tree, the very place where it all began. I brought incense, salt, a bowl of herbal water, and 7 coins, each one representing a person, a memory. At exactly midnight, I stepped into the circle of salt. I lit the incense and began chanting. The wind picked up fast, making the flame flicker and lean. I said, "My name is Theen. I admit my wrongs, the charms I once wrote, the pain they caused. I take responsibility. If there are real grievances, show yourselves. If there are real wrongs, let me bear them." There was no reply, but from afar, the mist thickened and drifted in. And then I saw them. One by one, the figures appeared. Duyen, with sunken, sleepless eyes. Lean, with pale, purple lips. The child from years ago, holding the toy I once offered during a ritual. And a man I didn't recognize. They surrounded me, forming a circle. No one spoke, but their eyes weighed down like stones. I knelt and whispered, "If any of you still hold resentment, then strike me. I accept it. But please, don't follow others anymore. Don't haunt anyone else. Don't let what happened to me happen again." Suddenly, the wind stopped. Then came a small voice, a child's voice. "Can I go home now?" I choked on my words. "Yes, go home. Everyone deserves a home." The flame in my hand went out, and the circle of spirits slowly faded. Lightly, as if they'd never existed. I collapsed on the ground, tears falling, but they weren't salty. Just cold. A deep, hollow cold from within. The next morning, Uncle Tam came. He saw me still lying there but didn't ask anything. He simply said, "Releasing karma is one thing, but keeping your heart clean after that, that's the hard part." I nodded, didn't speak, but deep down, I knew. From now on, every time I draw a charm, I will remember each face from that night. After the atonement ritual, I thought I'd feel peace. But I didn't. From that night on, I began to feel something wrong in my chest. It wasn't pain, it was heaviness, as if something was pressing down on my heart. At first, it was just a vague feeling, but it grew clearer. When I lay on my side, I could hear whispers, soft and faint. When I walked uphill, my heartbeat would skip, not just once, but like 2 rhythms out of sync. I told Uncle Tam, "I feel like someone else is breathing inside my chest." He looked at me carefully and said, "Open your shirt, let me see." I unbuttoned my shirt. On the left side of my chest, there was a small bruise, perfectly round, like the tip of a finger. It pulsed with my heartbeat. Uncle Tam sighed. There's a spirit hiding inside you. It's not following you. It's inside you. I asked, how is that even possible? He answered, during the ritual, some spirit must have refused to leave. It saw you could carry pain, so it slipped in. I shivered. What do I do now? Uncle Tam shook his head. You can't force it out. If you try, it'll struggle. You have to talk to it. Let it leave, because it wants to. I stayed in bed for 3 days. Did nothing. Didn't touch charms or ink. But each night, I heard it more clearly. A girl's voice, very soft, inside my heart. I don't know who I am. I only know this place is warm. Here feels safe. I'm scared of going back to the cold. I whispered, who are you? What's your name? No reply. Only one hard thump in my chest. Off rhythm. I told Uncle Tam. He said, tomorrow night, under the banyan tree. You won't speak, she will. You won't call, let her remember. So I did. At midnight, I sat beneath the old tree. Hand over my chest, eyes closed, and then I heard it. Not from my mouth, but from within my chest. I am man? I flinched. That name, familiar, yet strange. She continued. I was the little girl on the bus that flipped at the mountain pass 10 years ago. No one came for me. No one called my name. I wandered. Then I saw you, drawing charms beneath this tree. You looked warm, so I hid inside you. I whispered, so you don't hate me, do you? Man replied, no, I'm just scared of wandering again. Here, there's a heartbeat. A breath. It feels like living. I stayed silent. Then I said, but you can't stay here forever. I'm alive. You're a soul. One day, I'll grow weak, and you'll be pulled down with me. Her voice faded slightly. Then, give me a place to remember. I don't need to stay. Just somewhere to belong. I pulled out a white cloth and stitched a small red circle, just like the bruise on my chest. I said, come into this. I'll keep it, but no more hiding. When you're strong enough, go. The bruise on my chest slowly faded. The night wind passed gently through the roots of the banyan tree. Warm, comforting. I realized, some spirits don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be understood. After the night I helped man leave my chest, I took a break from drawing talismans. I just went to Master Tam's hut every day, sweeping the floors, washing dishes, making tea. One afternoon, while wiping down the windowsill, I saw a boy, around 12 or 13, peeking out from the edge of the forest. His face was smudged with dirt, and he was clutching an old notebook to his chest. I called out, hey, whose kid are you? He replied softly, they told me to come here to learn how to draw talismans. I stared at him for a long time. His hands were thin, nails stained black, his face, so young, so raw, looked exactly like me back then. I turned to Master Tam. You're taking him in as a student? He said, wasn't me who called him. Someone sent him. His mother passed away. Father disappeared. His grandmother asked me to keep him away from the bad crowd around here. I sat next to the boy. What's your name? Dung, he said. I asked, do you know what talismans are? Dung shook his head. No, but I heard people say, drawing talismans makes money. I let out a sad laugh. He wasn't wrong. I used to think the same. That evening, I asked Master Tam to let me teach Dung the first few lessons, not about how to write talismans, but how to understand this craft. I told Dung, this job has no real name. People call us shamans, spirit callers, sorcerers, but the truth is, no one really knows what we do. And no one dares call it by its true name. Why? He asked. Because this job runs on karma. Every time you help someone cleanse their fate, you carry part of it yourself. I told him about Duyan, about Lean, about Master Than, and about Little Man. His eyes widened. He clutched his notebook tighter. Then he asked, so, why didn't you quit? I said, I did, many times, but it's not easy. It's like walking into a house with no doors. Every time I try to leave, I hear someone call my name. I can't turn my back. A week later, I noticed Dung had changed. He stopped smiling, stopped talking. I asked him what was wrong, but he said nothing. That night, I heard rustling behind the hut. I sneaked outside, and there he was, drawing a talisman alone, pricking his finger to dip in blood. I shouted, "Dung, stop!" He flinched, trembling. I just wanted to try. I heard a voice teaching me in my dream. I rushed over, grabbed the pen, tore the paper to pieces, and held him tight. "Don't," I said. "You're just starting out. Don't end up like me. Your blood isn't strong enough to carry all of this." He cried. I cried. Master Tam didn't say a word. He simply lit a stick of incense and placed it on the stone altar. That night, I sat alone under the ancient banyan tree. I asked myself, does this craft really save anyone? Or is it just a cycle, one person passing it to the next, and both slowly sinking deeper? I don't have the answer. But I know one thing: if someone had stopped me back then, the way I just stopped Dung, maybe my life would have turned out differently. A month after I stopped Dung from drawing talismans, Mr. Tam fell ill. He didn't complain of pain, just quietly said, "I think my time's up. Theen, I've lived this long because I kept my vow. Now that vow has lost its power. There's no reason for me to hold on." I brought him back to the small hut and laid him on the bamboo bed. He refused to go to the hospital. Didn't want visitors either. "This craft of ours, we can't let people see us weak. They won't understand, they'll just be afraid." On his final night, he looked at me and said, "You don't have to continue this path. You must end it. I passed it to you not so you'd become a master, but so you'd see the line. Talismans aren't evil. It's people who misuse them that create karma. But if you keep living with it, you'll end up like me. Or worse." I cried. He just smiled and turned his face away. That night, he passed, quietly, like the last breeze of a dying season. I sat beside his body until morning. No incense, no altar. He'd told me once, "When I go, burn all the spell books. Don't leave anything behind." So I did. The hut went up in flames that same afternoon. The smell of old paper, ink, human hair, incense ash, all mingled together, like the final breath of a long dream. That evening, I returned home, opened the old drawer, took out the first notebook I ever used to learn spells. I tore each page out, one by one. Then I picked up my dried out pen, walked to the banyan tree, and whispered a prayer. I said, "From this day on, I'll no longer cast spells. I won't bind anyone, won't protect anyone, won't call upon anyone. I'll live the rest of my life as an ordinary man. If I've ever caused pain, I ask for forgiveness. If any spirit has followed me out of grievance, I ask to be forgotten." A wind rose, but it wasn't cold. The banyan leaves scattered across the yard, swirling gently around my feet. And somewhere, I felt, someone was nodding. The next morning, I brought Dung back to his grandmother. She cried. I simply said, "He hasn't learned anything yet. I promised to return him." And I did, on time. That afternoon, I left the village. No one asked where I went. No one said goodbye. Only the banyan tree remained, standing quietly, like the old craft itself. Nameless, wordless, no farewell needed. I now live somewhere else, doing something else. And sometimes, in dreams, I see Mr. Tam again, sitting, brewing tea, eyes closed, smiling gently. No more incense, no more spells, just an old man, finally at peace. There are paths we walk out of curiosity, but leave because of pain. There are professions that need no name, just one look. And you know how heavy they are. This 10-episode series, Darkness in the Night, isn't just the journey of a spellcaster. It's the story of a human being, from ignorance to understanding the weight of the karma he sowed. And sometimes, the greatest power is the courage to stop. Folded hands if you've walked with me to this final episode, thank you. Truly. Speech balloon, leave a comment below. Have you ever believed in spells? Or known someone trapped in blame, pain, or vengeance they couldn't escape? Right finger if you'd like to walk with me into the next series. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon, so you won't miss the next shadowy tale, the next story. Still waiting to be told.